evening, everyone. I'm Hernandez, and I will be your host for this all-star reading of Dolores Huerta in her own words. On behalf of the Farmworker Justice Board of Directors, the National Advisory Council, and Farmworker Justice President, Bruce Goldstein, we bid you a warm welcome for this special tribute honoring the iconic civil rights and social justice advocate, Dolores Huerta, on her 91st birthday. I'm honored to serve as the chair of the National Advisory Council for Farmworker Justice. The council members today proudly present this event, which features original cast members of the groundbreaking theatrical play, Zoot Suit. They are Edward James Olmos, Julie Carmen, Enrique Castillo, Dr. Alma Martinez, and Pepe Serna. Today's reading will be followed by a post-discussion with the playwright and the director of this iconic play, Luis Valdez, Dolores Huerta, and Bruce Goldstein. I know many of you are joining us from different parts of the country and other countries. We are grateful that you took the time from your busy schedule to listen in and participate in this important event. Farmworker Justice events provide an opportunity to bring together supporters and contributors from the business, legal, government, and nonprofit communities, and to highlight the important and impactful work that the organization is accomplishing throughout the year, and especially during the challenges we have faced during the COVID-19 era. Farmworker Justice cannot continue its impactful work for farmworkers without your generous support. Our legal work and educational outreach programs would cease to exist without a support like yours. This event in particular is brought to you by the generous support of our underwriters and the following individuals: the California Community Foundation, J.L. Orozco Academia Cultural, PICON, Pineros y Campesinos Unidos del Noreste, and Sandra and Mario Swell. Please join me in thanking each one of them for their generosity and for supporting quality programming like this evening's event. We hope that you will log on to www.farmworkerjustice.org and make a donation. Isn't it ironic that the very people who help feed America are often going hungry themselves? Yes, farm worker jobs are among the lowest paying and most dangerous in the nation. Many labor laws exclude agriculture employees from coverage. A majority of farm workers are undocumented immigrants, living in fear of arrest, deportation, and breakup of their families. Wage theft is all too common because many undocumented workers often cannot take the risk of reporting violations for fear of losing their job and being deported. And climate change has added to the dangers of farm workers, who have been laboring through wildfires, extremely high temperatures that often exceed 100 degrees. And now, in the era of COVID-19, farm workers have suffered disproportionately more than many other segments of our country's population due to the nature of their essential work and their lack of access to testing, healthcare, and vaccines. And yet, with all these challenges, farm workers are fighting back, and Farmworker Justice is right there helping them. This year, Farmworker Justice proudly celebrates 40 years of continuous service to farm workers and their organizations. Now, I would like to introduce the president of Farmworker Justice, Bruce Goldstein, who will tell you about an important milestone in the organization's history. Bruce joined Farmworker Justice as a staff attorney 34 years ago, after practicing law and civil rights in the Midwest. His activities have included advocacy in administrative agencies and Congress, building coalitions, advising grassroots organizations, litigating high-impact cases against employers and the government. He continues to train legal professionals and helps shape public opinion through publications and the media. During his tenure, Farmworker Justice has continued its long-standing role as a national leader in advocating for immigration reform legislation, improving labor and occupational safety protections, expanding access to healthcare, building capacity of farm worker organizations on the ground in agricultural communities, and Improving Corporate Responsibility in the Food Supply Chain. Bruce represents Farmworker Justice on the National Hispanic Leadership Agenda, a coalition of 40 prominent national Latino organizations, and is a co-founder and board member of the Equitable Food Initiative, an innovative corporate social responsibility project. Please help me welcome my friend, Bruce Goldstein.
Bill, thank you for hosting this remarkable event and for your service as our chair of the National Advisory Council for Farmworker Justice. Farmworker Justice is celebrating its 40th anniversary. It was founded in 1981. The founder's goal was to be a vigorous voice for farm workers in the nation's capital and help farm workers and their organizations throughout the nation achieve a greater measure of justice. Our mission is to empower farm workers to improve their wages and working conditions, immigration status, occupational safety, and health. Our founders decided that success required a multidisciplinary approach, encompassing policy analysis, advocacy, legal assistance and litigation, and capacity building to community-based groups. Throughout our history, Farmworker Justice's impact has been maximized through our partnerships and collaborations with farmworker labor unions, worker centers, and community-based groups. We've helped farm workers amplify their voice and their power by building and participating in coalitions with many other constituencies, including labor, Latino, immigrant, civil rights, environmental, legal, public health, and other social justice organizations. Since its founding, Farmworker Justice has played a major role in winning every major advance in federal immigration, labor, occupational safety, and health policies affecting farm workers. We've litigated high-impact cases against abusive employers, engaged in systemic abuses, and against government agencies that violate the law. We've played an important role in advocacy at the state and federal level for responses to the COVID-19 pandemic. Our capacity building assistance to community-based organizations around the country has trained community health workers, promotores de salud, and others to conduct education and training programs on labor rights, pesticide safety, skin cancer prevention, HIV/AIDS, and access to health care. Hundreds of thousands of farm workers have been benefiting from the dedicated expert work of the staff of Farmworker Justice in collaboration with organizations throughout the country. Despite the major accomplishments of Farmworker Justice and our partners, there is still pervasive injustice suffered by farm workers. Their wages are among the lowest of any occupation. The occupational death and injury rates rank among the highest of any group of workers in the country. Toxic pesticides continue to poison farm workers and their children. Major labor laws at the federal and state levels still deny many farm workers the same labor rights of other workers. Violations of the rights that do apply are still rampant. Our immigration system is so fundamentally broken that it subjects the majority of farm workers to either an undocumented status or a temporary work visa under the H-2A guest worker program. Most farm workers do not receive health insurance. For all these reasons and more, the COVID-19 pandemic has fallen disproportionately hard on farm workers and their family members, even though they have been designated formally as essential workers to our food and agriculture system. We will be the first to admit that despite our accomplishments, there is much more that must be done. With a new presidential administration and a new Congress, there are new opportunities to help farm workers achieve a greater measure of justice. Farmworker Justice depends on the support of people like you for the funding to provide farm workers with our valuable services. I, for one, hope that everyone, in whatever way they can, will help Farmworker Justice fulfill its mission. It's a privilege and a pleasure to hold this event to honor Dolores Huerta. Farmworker Justice has collaborated with Dolores for most of our 40 years. From the 1980s onward, Dolores has been coming to Washington, D.C., often on brutal red-eye flights, to advocate in Congress and the administration. And we would help her. We've been working on many issues together, and we are constantly amazed at Dolores's creativity, astuteness, resilience, energy, and her optimism. This evening, we are honored to have a brilliant and accomplished cast of actors to read Dolores Huerta in her own words. It is also a pleasure to collaborate again with Luis Valdez, a recipient of the Farmworker Justice Award in 2006, when he led the audience in a moving tribute to the struggles of farm workers and the history of El Teatro Campesino. El Teatro Campesino provided support in the fields to Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta, the United Farm Workers, and the farm workers who were bravely striking and picketing to achieve justice. El Teatro Campesino, which continues today, not only supported farm workers, but had broader significance, bringing to the Broadway stage and screen the amazing play and film Zoot Suit, which helped lead to Latinos being recognized for their accomplishments and potential in theater and film. And for this event, original members of El Teatro Campesino are helping us honor Dolores Huerta. Thank you to our board of directors, advisory council, Farmworker Justice staff, volunteers, and sponsors, and the supporters of farm workers. So I hope you will please enjoy this event. We have a wealth of information about how you can be helpful to farm workers on our website, www.farmworkerjustice.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. The social justice impact work Farmworker Justice achieves each year is so impressive. And now let's begin our program. In 2005, Dolores Huerta and her friend Damian Figueroa had a conversation. Throughout the years, she had often been misquoted by the media. She gave Damian a number of examples. And so the idea of the reading of Dolores Huerta in her own words came to life. The two of them researched together, put all of the quotes in chronological order, and corrected all the misquotes. Later, they developed a notebook and titled it Dolores in Her Own Words. They invited a cast of actors to a reading of the notebook on Dolores' 75th birthday. The cast was comprised of Eva Longoria, the late actress Lupe Ontiveros, who played the matriarch in the original production of Zoot Suit, playwright director Diane Rodriguez, who was part of El Teatro Campesino and played the court stenographer in the film Zoot Suit, and actor-activist Ed Begley Jr. On Dolores Huerta's 89th birthday, Farmworker Justice enlisted the help of Advisory Council member Brenda Herrera, and the following actors were there for the second reading: Karina Noel Castillo, Isai Morales, Julie Carmen, and Diana Ortelli. This past April 10th, Dolores celebrated her 91st birthday. She continues to make such a significant impact in this world. And so this evening, we pay tribute to her with the reading of Dolores Huerta in her own words. Almost 45 years ago, in 1978, the play Zoot Suit changed the course of our lives and was a major milestone in the theater world in Los Angeles. Some of the members of both the LA and the Broadway cast are here to help pay tribute to Dolores by reading Dolores Huerta in her own words in celebration of her 91st birthday. The cast that we have assembled today represents a body of work that is unmatched. Collectively, they have participated in over 1,000 Hollywood productions. This in an industry that is resistant by design to open the gates of the film and TV industry to Latinos. This is a testament to their tenacity, determination, craftswomanship, and craftsmanship. Each of them learned to produce their own entertainment projects, many reflecting our community. We take off our hats to each and every one of you. And by the way, all the readers are members of the Academy of Motion Pictures, Arts and Sciences, the voting entity for the Oscars. Please help me in welcoming this stellar cast of actors. They are, in alphabetical order, Julie Carmen, an actress, producer, and licensed psychotherapist. She came to prominence on screen in the 1980s in John Cassavetes' film, Gloria. She was a dancer in the Broadway production of Zoot Suit. Then she went on to co-star in the iconic film, The Milagro Beanfield War, as well as in The Mouth of Madness, and 26 other films. Most recently, she starred opposite Edward James Olmos in Windows on the World. Her television credits are numerous, consisting of starring roles in series and movies of the week. She was a regular in the groundbreaking TV series Condo, which was based on a Latino family. She recently directed and produced the documentary The Unnecessary Salvation of Mary McDaniel, written by Herman Johansson. Enrique Castillo, a noted actor, producer, and director. Enrique grew up as a farm worker, traveling with his family up and down the state of California to go to the next cosecha. While attending Berkeley University, he met Luis Valdez and joined El Teatro Campesino. Moving to LA, Luis cast him in Zoot Suit, first in the role of Smiley, and then he took over the role of Henry Reina when the rest of the cast went to Broadway. His work in films includes Borderline, El Norte, Deja Vu, Mi Familia, and Blood Out, among many others. On television, the list of credits is long, but he is most remembered for his role as Cesar in Showtime's Weeds. Currently, he is co-directing and producing the documentary about Los Changuitos Feos and the start of the student mariachi movement. Dr. Alma Martinez is an actress, producer, stage director, and theater professor. After playing Della in Zoot Suit in the production in Hollywood, she went to star in her first film, Barbarossa, followed by Under Fire, Born in East LA, For Greater Glory, and many others. Alma is a consummate stage actor, having worked on Broadway, off-Broadway, and regional theater with over 100 credits, including Mexican and European stages. She was also part of the Mexico City production of Zoot Suit. You can currently watch her in Netflix Gentified. Edward James Olmos, known affectionately by many of his friends as Eddie. Edward James Olmos is an Oscar-nominated and Emmy Award and Golden Globe winning actor. He is one of the biggest stars in Hollywood and in our Latino community. His role as the Pachuco solidified his career as an actor. We know him from his work in iconic films such as Stand and Deliver, Blade Runner, The Ballad of Gregorio Cortez, and of course we all have our favorites. Maybe it's Selena, Mi Familia, American Me, which he also directed and produced. The list keeps growing every year. On TV, he has many credits. However, 3 roles stand out. Detective Castillo in Miami Vice, Admiral Adama in Battlestar Galactica, and Professor Geller in Dexter. You can currently see him in the films Window on the World, which is streaming on Amazon, and on Netflix, Mayans MC. And on April 30th, make sure to catch his latest film, Walking with Herb, in which he stars with George Lopez in a role unlike you've ever seen him play. Pepe Serna. Since his breakout role in 1970 on the Roger Corman film, The Student Nurses, Pepe has amassed 150 films, including the blockbuster comedy, The Jerk, and his most memorable role in Scarface and American Me. In his 70s, Pepe finally got to play his first leading role in a film, in the critically acclaimed independent film, Reno. Pepe is currently working on a documentary about his life. So, before we begin, I wanted to add that I too was part of the cast of Zoot Suit. I was one of the dancers. Dora was my name, and I was in the theater production in Hollywood. And I was lucky to be a part of such an historic production. It really did change my life. Another experience that has been transformational for me has been my volunteer service with Farmworker Justice as the chair of its National Advisory Council. And now we present to you Dolores Huerta in her own words.
Martin Luther King Jr., Cesar Chavez, Malcolm X, Robert F. Kennedy, all giants in the American civil rights movement, all men of courage who valued the truth above their own lives. But there is another name, a woman's name. Dolores means sorrow, Huerta means orchard. The literal translation of her name is sorrow in the orchards. This name foretold her life.
Dolores Huerta has been a great champion of human rights and social justice, not only for American farm workers, but for African Americans and working people of all races. She's a woman of extraordinary dedication and courage who provides a superb role model for women in civil rights. And now, Dolores Huerta in her own words.
I am proud to tell you that I am a Mexican American union organizer, and I was born April 10th, 1930. I served as vice president and co-founded the worked side by side with one of the country's greatest leaders, Cesar Chavez. And I was the first person to ever negotiate a farm labor contract.
My father, Juan Fabian Hernandez, was a volunteer union organizer. He's a very well-respected and a member of the New Mexico State Legislature. But he was expelled from the legislature because he got into a fight with Jose Montoya, who was anti-union. Montoya was a cotton grower who used braceros. Montoya became a congressman. My father was many things. He was a farm worker, a mine worker, an electrician, accountant, assemblyman, and veteran.
My mother, Alicia St. John Chavez, was a wonderful woman. When she and my dad divorced, she came to California and worked 2 jobs, in the cannery at night and as a waitress during the day. She saved enough money to establish a restaurant. When World War II broke out, she gave up the restaurant and took over a hotel that belonged to a Japanese family who had been put in a concentration camp. Our family lived in the hotel.
My mother was fiercely independent, a Mexican-American Horatio Alger. She put up destitute farm workers for free. My brothers and I helped with the hotel work. We were janitors, laundry workers, and we checked in guests.
My mother was a feminist. She was an equal opportunity mother. My 2 brothers, Marshall and John, and I split up the chores at home. There was a chart to check. After we did our chores, we swept and mopped floors, made beds, washed dishes. My mother never asked me to serve my brothers.
That is an important lesson, especially for the Latino culture. Women are expected to serve and cook and clean. In our family, everyone was equal. She was a quiet person who accomplished a lot. She was a leader in the community, a founder of the first Latino Chamber of Commerce.
My mother would always say to us, when you see that somebody is in need, don't wait to be asked to help. Help them. And don't talk about your help or accept money in return. If you talk about what you did or expect a reward, you take the grace of God away from that charitable act. These beliefs insulate you against corruption.
There was constant discrimination against teenagers of color. I started a teen center in a storefront. We had ping pong tables and a jukebox where we played and had jitterbug contests. The police shut it down. They said they did not want to see white kids hanging around with Negroes, Filipinos, and Mexicanos. It was a rude awakening for me to see how deep the racism was in our town.
My mother taught me to be generous and caring for others. Her community activism taught me to be outspoken. After high school, I went to college. While teaching grammar school, I felt I had to leave because I couldn't stand seeing kids come to class hungry and needing shoes. I thought I could do more by organizing farm workers than by trying to teach their hungry children.
When I decided to leave teaching and become an organizer, my daughter Celeste was doing her confirmation and I didn't have money to buy her shoes. So, she walked down the aisle in tennis shoes with holes in them. But then I saw the farm worker children were walking down the aisle with tennis shoes and holes in them. And I knew I had made the right decision.
May 5th, 1962 was the day. The National Farm Workers Association was born. A few years later, it became the United Farm Workers. Richard Chavez, Cesar's brother, drew the symbol for our new organization. It was a black thunderbird against a red backdrop. Years later, I came up with the slogan, Si se puede. We can do it. In Arizona in 1972.
And like all UFW organizers, I learned to live on $10 a week, stay with people who would give me a place to sleep. I've been doing this since the early 60s.
In 1968, I was next to Senator Robert F. Kennedy at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles the night we won the 1968 California primary for the Democratic presidential nomination. That night, Kennedy thanked both Cesar and I for registering Chicanos to vote like never before. Moments later, Kennedy was led through the hotel kitchen that ended his life and changed a nation.
When Cesar and I had differences, it was always a question of tactics. It was never about philosophy. We were always in tune on direction or vision. Women think differently than men. This came to the forefront when we were striking Jumara, the largest grape grower and who also grows potatoes, and planning the boycott.
Cesar said, we've got to boycott potatoes. But I said, when people think of potatoes, they think of Idaho, not California. We had a big argument about it on the phone. I said, Cesar, I think this is important enough that I should fly back to California so we can discuss this in person. But Cesar didn't like to spend money. He didn't want to pay for the plane ticket, so he gave in. There is a difference in the way that women and men think and discuss issues.
We took a stand to help the dairy workers at the 3 Mile Canyon farms who had been struggling to get a contract for over 20 months. These workers had been the victims of harassment, retaliation, discrimination, and ongoing workplace abuse. It was hard to believe that it was a coincidence that of the 150 employees at the dairy, there were only 2 women.
I had to fight oppression caused by the growers and politicians. It's not easy for men to have a woman as a leader. I had to earn my way. I think my commitment frightens people. What were they afraid of? I'm only 5 feet 2 inches tall.
I want to be recognized for what I do, not for what I don't do. I want to see women in the movement get recognized. I feel this way. If I'm not given recognition, that means other women are not getting recognized. If I can be slighted, then that means they can be slighted. It's a personal thing, but I owe this to women.
When Cesar did his first fast, he went 25 days without eating. He fasted for 25 days twice, and the last fast was for 36 days. When he first started organizing, he said one of us would have to be out there in front. He was uncomfortable with that role. Once, as we were going into a meeting, the workers were shouting, "Viva Chavez!" He winced, and I asked, "What's the matter, Cesar?" He said, "I remember some of these people wouldn't give me a meeting when we started."
Cesar was a practical person in terms of his own image. He wouldn't let us put his picture on the posters. When he was in jail in Salinas, we made a button with his picture on it that said, "Boycott the hell out of them." He got really mad at us. He actually said this as he was being dragged off to jail. We had to change the button to "Nonviolence is our strength." He let us put his picture on that button.
Cesar was not into the glory thing. It's kind of interesting now because now there are schools, libraries, and buildings named after him. That was not Cesar. He wanted people to work hard and get the work done. He's buried at the UFW headquarters in La Paz. I think he wanted to make sure to keep watch to see that the organizers were coming in early and leaving late. He worked hard and set the example for everyone.
Over the years, my work has been dangerous. I've been arrested 24 times for nonviolent protests. At a 1988 demonstration against George Bush Sr., who said there was nothing wrong with pesticides. I was beaten so severely by a San Francisco policeman. I was rushed into emergency surgery for treatment of broken ribs and a pulverized spleen. Local TV reporter captured the attack, and the publicity helped push through reforms for police crowd control.
The Saturday before Cesar died, Cesar said, "I've been told that I treat you and the women on the board differently." "Do you know what that is?" Cesar asked me. And I said, "Yes, Cesar, it's male chauvinism." He laughed and laughed. That was his indirect way of apologizing.
On April 23rd, 1993, Cesar died in his sleep. 55,000 people participated in his funeral procession. It was the largest funeral for any labor leader in the history of the United States. 1 year after his death, 17,000 farm workers and supporters, led by Arturo Rodriguez, the new president of the union, and I, repeated the 340-mile march from Delano to Sacramento. President Clinton awarded him the United States Medal of Freedom. And several states have recently declared his birthday, March 31st, a holiday. He became the very symbol of the civil rights movement for Latinos.
Young people must be encouraged to serve others and value accomplishments of workers. We are on earth to serve others. When I speak to college students, I tell them, you have to remember who makes the wealth in this world. The workers. Your job is to serve the people who create the wealth.
I am the mother of 11 children, 14 grandchildren, and 9 great-grandchildren. The greatest inheritance that you can leave your children is values of social justice and not material things. You're only 91 once. I'm also celebrating over 67 years of being an organizer.
Joseph Campbell, who was the ultimate authority on heroes and myths, talked about heroes in an interview with Bill Moyer before he died. Campbell said the ultimate trials for heroes lie in losing themselves to some higher end. When we quit thinking primarily about ourselves and our own self-preservation, we undergo a truly heroic transformation of consciousness. If this is what a hero is, then Dolores Huerta is surely a heroine of our times.
I hope my legacy will be that I was an organizer, that I can pass on how to create the miracles that can be accomplished when people come together to organize. As the lobbyist for the CSO and the UFW, we passed pensions and disability benefits for resident aliens, amnesty, ballots and driver's licenses in Spanish, unemployment insurance for farm workers, the Cultural Workers Relation Act that gave farm workers the right to organize into a union.
You can build and make nonviolent change through organization. That's what I want my legacy to be. Working for a just world to make a positive difference, and we will see the day when we end discrimination against women, against people of color, against transsexuals, transgender, gays, lesbians, and against all workers.
You ask me how I want to be remembered.
What I want to be on my tombstone?
I want you to put,
Sí se puede.
Sí se puede.
Sí se puede.
sí se puede.
Sí se
Sí
puede.
se puede.
Sí se puede.
Sí se puede.
Que viva Dolores.
Viva
Viva
Dolores.
Dolores.
Viva Dolores.
¡Que viva!
Que viva.
Wow, that was beautiful. Simply beautiful. I am so glad to be able to witness this. Thank you to the stellar cast of the accomplished actors Enrique Castillo, my husband, and my friends, Julie Carmen, Dr. Alma Martinez, Edward James Olmos, and Pepe Serna. This whole event is quite the history lesson. we have assembled the masters of advocacy, of what it means to be a social justice advocate artist. This is truly a masterclass with the people that were there and made history. Thank you all. And now, as promised, we will begin our panel discussion with Bruce Goldstein, president of the Farmworker Justice, the incomparable Luis Valdez, founder of El Teatro Campesino, and the woman of the hour that really needs no introduction. However, her accomplishments are so impressive. She has received the Presidential Medal of Honor from President Obama, who used her slogan, Si se puede, and translated it to Yes, we can for his presidential campaign. She was the subject of the movie Dolores, produced by Carlos Santana. The film Dolores aired on PBS and received a prestigious Peabody Award. Dolores was invited as a keynote speaker at the last 2 Democratic National Conventions. She performed with rapper Common on the 2018 Oscars. Both California and Washington, D.C. now have an official holiday, Dolores Huerta Day. The Dolores Huerta Foundation continues to make significant impact and continues to grow. Log on to their website and you can see all that they do. Dolores is the co-founder of the United Farm Workers of America. This is Dolores Huerta. We welcome you, Dolores. We celebrate you, Dolores. And thank you all, Bruce and Luis, for being here. And let's start this conversation, which is, you are all such noted individuals. And first, I want to start off with Dolores. Dolores, I know that your birthday celebration lasts for a month sometimes. And so therefore, I would like to personally wish you a happy birthday.
Well, thank you.
Of course. And Dolores, tell us your thoughts about turning 90 and also the reflections and what you were feeling as you were hearing the readings of your life.
Well, it's wonderful to hear all of those beautiful actors. I'm talking about the actors that were reading these lines are like the pioneers in the entertainment industry for Latinos. So this was very, very touching. It really filled my heart, and I want to say almost brought me to tears to know that they would give up their valuable time to say my words. And so it was very beautiful. It was a reflection of course, I've lived, as you said, 90 some years now. So there's a lot out there that I have said, and it's nice to hear some of it coming back, but coming back to me in such a gracious way.
Yes, it was beautiful and so moving. And I really enjoyed hearing it. And I would like to now ask Luis. Luis, can you please tell us how you originally made the connection of El Teatro Campesino working with farm workers and how that played out, how it developed?
Well, it's a very natural connection. I was born in Delano in a labor camp, actually just across the tracks there in Chinatown in 1940. In 1941, a family moved in across the street and rented one of the shacks that belonged to one of my tias, Juanita Castillo. And that family was the Chavez family. It had 2 teenage boys, Cesar and his brother Richard. And so I met Cesar actually when I was 6 years old in Delano, because he was a friend, a running partner, really, of one of my cousins, Billy Miranda, who was a teenager, younger than Cesar, but nevertheless, they were all Pachucos there in Delano. And that needs to be said. The connection with Zoot Suit, the Zoot Suit cast, is important because I was inspired to write about Zoot Suit and the Sleepy Lagoon case by my experiences as a kid in Delano. I saw Pachucos on the streets in Chinatown in Delano. I didn't see Cesar in a Zoot Suit, but I learned later on that there was that connection through my my cousin. As a matter of fact, I think I met Cesar when I was 6 because, again, I was a little kid. He didn't know who I was. I didn't know who he was. But that impression was what collected a bond between us when I finally got to meet him. I met Dolores before I met Cesar, actually, and pitched her my idea for a theater of farm workers, up by and for farm workers. And she was very encouraging. It gave me a lot of confidence to go on to talk to Cesar about it. And so she was always a champion of the whole idea of El Teatro Campesino, to this very day. And I appreciate that. I think her example is amazing, not just to Chicanos, but to the world at large.
Definitely. Also, there's pictures of you performing in the fields. How did that idea come about? How to take the theater to the fields?
You know, it comes as a wave. You know, I believe in the historical wave. And I was actually, my first year in college, I was a math and physics major. I loved math and I loved physics. And but I had this desire to do theater, which is another story altogether. But I became an English major and studied American theater. I was fascinated with the theater of the 1930s, the activist theater. And so I had that as a background. And also world theater, Bertolt Brecht in Germany. The activist theater that came out of the 20s and 30s fascinated me. And so that was my link. And what I needed is a place to be, you know, as a playwright. Now, you got to understand, the color line was really heavily drawn in the American theater when I was in college. I couldn't even get on the main stage because there were no roles for me. I couldn't get cast. They were all white roles. And so I did a lot of readers theater, and that made a difference. But I decided I had to write my own roles. So I became a playwright. And I went up to San Francisco, joined the San Francisco Mime Troupe, learned to work in the parks. And I saw the connection immediately. I said, I need to take this into the fields. I need to go into the labor camps. And the opportunity was there in Delano all along. I had to go back to my hometown, a place that we had escaped back in 1953, you know, when the cotton picking machines came in and all the cotton pickers were disemployed. My family moved to San Jose. And that's where I met Dolores, actually, when she came to San Jose State to speak about the strike. And that's when I talked to her about El Teatro Campesino. But that idea is something that had been floating through the century. You know, I believe in the historical wave. And the idea of a workers' theater is something that had existed throughout the early 20th century into the 30s. And then it gone dormant. And so we revived it in the same way that the United Farm Workers revived the whole idea of unions among the working class, way down deep at the roots. El Teatro Campesino was a revival of an old idea, a workers' theater in America.
So fascinating. Thank you for that. Also, I wanted to go back to Dolores. Dolores, you are the president of the Dolores Huerta Foundation. Tell us about the work that you're doing and how we can support your efforts. And I know that you have a big bash coming up in May. That's next month. And we want to go. We all want to go. And tell us how we can do that.
Well, we're going to celebrate my birthday on May the 22nd. It's kind of a month after my birthday, but we want to welcome everybody to come and join us. And we're going to be doing it as a fundraiser because we have a site now where we're going to build a campus, and it's going to have an auditorium so that people can see plays, a child care center, a credit union, a place for our youth group, and of course to house our 45 staff people that we have with the Dolores Huerta Foundation. And so we want to invite everybody to come and join us on May the 22nd, where we'll be asking everybody to celebrate my 91st birthday. In the foundation right now, we're doing a lot of work right now on COVID. Today we have 70 people that are out there canvassing. They've got their shields, they've got their masks, and they're giving out masks, going door to door, giving people masks, giving them a material about how they can access resources of the people that have been affected by this pandemic. We're also doing vaccine clinics throughout the Central Valley, in Kern, Tulare, and Fresno County, and also in the High Desert and the Antelope Valley. We're doing food banks. We're active in 17 different school districts, organizing the parents and the students because we want to get rid of the school to prison pipeline. We want to change and know that our students of color, Black and brown, deserve an equitable education, which they are not receiving right now. The children of farm workers are being deprived of an equitable education. So that's one of our big projects. Of course, we have a youth group. We're working on a lot of legislation in Sacramento. So farm workers can kind of do write-in ballots so they can join a union. And in Washington, D.C., we're supporting For the People Act so that people cannot be, we could get rid of the voter suppression and the Equal Rights Amendment for women, okay? That's also in the Senate, and of course, immigration reform. So we are very, very busy. We have a huge youth group. We're doing a lot of the voter information, voter education. So we're kind of all over the place. And of course, also working on the issues of global warming.
So everyone, please celebrate her 91st birthday. Go to the DoloresHuerta.org website and find out how you can get involved and celebrate. Also be part of this historical celebration. So thank you, Dolores, for all that information. Bruce, I would like to ask you about what the effect of having high-profile individuals come and be part of something like this, of this event, or to support farm workers or to support Farmworker Justice. How has that helped, and what do you appreciate about that, and how can people get involved with Farmworker Justice?
Thanks, Bill. Well, we're all about solutions at Farmworker Justice, and working with high-profile people like celebrities can help us amplify our voices about the solutions that we're working on with farm workers to improve conditions. It's not just about identifying problems, it's about identifying solutions to those problems. And high-profile people can draw attention to the solutions that we're working on in ways that it's difficult to sometimes do otherwise. So we're very appreciative of all the people who have been helping Farmworker Justice and helping farm workers in general. And it's great to have such articulate people explaining the problems of farm workers and how farm workers are working to solve those problems themselves. So I just appreciate all the folks who participated in this event and many other events that we're involved in.
And of course, you have worked on farm worker issues, like we said earlier, for so long. Tell us how things have changed during those years, if they have.
Well, I started working for farm workers in 1988 after being a labor and civil rights lawyer for industrial workers. And so although I had read a lot about it and boycotted grapes and lettuce, I didn't know that much about farm workers before joining Farmworker Justice. And in some ways, certain things just haven't changed, unfortunately. That is, the farm workers are still among the lowest paid workers in the country. They still have among the highest rates of job injuries and deaths. They're still excluded very often from labor laws. But there really has been progress in many fronts. There are a number of farm worker organizations that we work with that have accomplished great things at the federal level and the state level. We've accomplished immigration reform in the past. We've passed labor legislation. We've improved pesticide safety rules. And I think farm worker groups generally have become far more sophisticated in their advocacy and their litigation to achieve major impacts. So with the change in the presidential administration and Congress, I'm optimistic that farm worker organizations, with our help, will achieve a lot more in the next couple of years.
Amen to that. Hopefully that is going to come to pass. Luis, I wanted to go back to you and ask you a question about some of the cast members in Zoot Suit. You actually brought some of those cast members into the issues of farm workers and asked them to join in some of the events. Why did you do that? Why did you think it was important? Because, you know, also on the side, a lot of the cast from Zoot Suit is very involved. So that was part you're doing.
Well, you know, I mean, Zoot Suit was an outgrowth in many ways of El Teatro Campesino. It was activist theater. It attacked a piece of history that many people wanted to sweep under the rug, you know, the racism in the LAPD in the 1940s, which persists, unfortunately, not just to our day, but into the future, I think, judging from police departments all over the country. So it's an issue that is alive right now. I mean, the mistreatment of Black and Latino, Black and brown teenagers, particularly males in the street, the murder of Black and brown people, male and female, is linked to the whole Sleepy Lagoon case. And so I think every actor that came in was generally aware, that of the social implications of the work itself, that it was touching a nerve in Los Angeles. It to this day, it's the highest grossing production ever to originate in Los Angeles. The revival just a couple of years ago was sold out again. So the idea is that it's a raw live nerve that needs treating, and we need to be able to tell our own stories from our own perspective. And the actors helped me to do that. The incredible Eddie Olmos, James Olmos as El Pachuco, captured an icon that was in the memory of our people, and the genetic memory almost of our people. And my brother Daniel Valdez, who played Henry Reina, and of course, I mean, all of the actors. Now, your husband, Kike, had been one of my students at UC Berkeley, actually. As a matter of fact, I used to fly from Fresno to Berkeley, and he used to pick me up at the airport and drive me to class, and we established a friendship that has been ongoing all these years. And he joined El Teatro Campesino and worked with us here in San Juan Bautista, and then, of course, went on to L.A. To be in the Zoot Suit cast and pursue his own career. Same case with Diane Rodriguez. A lot of people that come to the teatro end up being social activists because that's who we are. That is the nature of El Teatro Campesino, is an outgrowth from the Huelga. And we took great inspiration from Dolores. We still take tremendous inspiration from her. Her 91 years, God bless you, Dolores, are pride of our people. She is the proud, so to speak, of the whole wave, that's been happening for almost a century now. A century of change and of demand and of protest and of activism.
Yes.
And it's a blessing, not just for Dolores, but for all of us, that she's still alive and so active and so vital and so crucially involved in the issues of our day. She's an example for people. She'll go on for the rest of the century, inspiring people. God bless her, because I think that's what consists of a social movement. It's the individuals that fate in some way, and the creator chooses to serve as the prow of the ship. And Dolores has become that for us. Activists come and go, some of them tragically, but God bless those that are able to continue to maintain their health despite of beatings and jailings, as in Dolores's case, and overcome that and transcend that and continue to stay positive and hopeful and intelligent and vital and important at the same time that she's a loving mother and a grandmother and a great-grandmother. What an example for humanity. Dolores, you're a legend, and you're an example for all of us for generations to come.
You make us proud, definitely. That was beautiful. Those reflections were really beautiful. I'd like to see if, Bruce, you can give us a few reflections on the work that you do, the help and the Dolores Huerta effect and the Luis Valdez effect that it has had on your work throughout your life with Farmworker Justice.
Well, thank you. Yes, and I just want to say that so many of the people that were in our earlier presentation, of course, came out of the Teatro Campesino and went on to become great artists. And of course, I guess we can say that Luis is the padrino. He's the godfather. So many great actors that came out of his work. And of course, he continues to do his great work in teaching, not only entertaining, but teaching through all of the plays that he does, because this is such an emotional and such a strong platform to be able to reach people on very difficult issues, and making people understand why they need to be involved in social justice movements. So thank you, Luis, and thank you for your beautiful words. I have been very, very blessed with my life. And of course, you have been a part of all of the work and everything that's been accomplished. So we are all very, very grateful to you. And then also to Bruce for hanging in for so many years there, to bring the condition of farm workers to the national spotlight. And so I think all of us, I think we've been very blessed. And also our moderator, my goodness, thank you so much for doing this, for doing this for all of us. So I hope that people that see this event will learn a little bit more about movement. And of course, we want to invite them to participate with us because we still have a lot of work to do, as we all know. But I think Bruce and Luis and yourself will agree with me that this is the moment in time where we can reach a lot of people, from the lessons that we learned in the past about building a social justice movement, that now we can take those lessons and really, you might say, kind of explode, explode the message, because I think people are getting ready to listen. I mean, I think Bruce and Luis and so many of our actors kind of they plowed the way. As the farmer could say, abrieron el camino. They opened up the path, right? All of you opened up the path, and now we can invite others to come and join us. So we have to continue the work because we're not there yet. But I think we are seeing a vision where we can have a democratic society, equal justice for men, women, our LGBT community, TQ community, and save our planet from global warming. But we can do it, si se puede, all of us working together. Thank you.
That's definitely true. Si se puede. And with Dolores at the helm, she's leading the way, and I'm right there behind you, Dolores. I am so honored to be speaking to these three legends that before us. And thank you. I want to thank everyone for letting me be part of this. And I wanted to ask Bruce just a couple of last reflections that you would want to talk about this event or anything else that's on your mind.
Well, thanks, Belle, and thanks again to you and to Dolores and to Luis and to everybody who participated in this event. I think people listening and watching to Dolores who don't know her already get a sense of her sharp intelligence, her commitment, her ability to think through issues and plan and organize. So she's more than just an inspiration. I mean, she's a true leader. And through all of the more than 3 decades that I've now worked with Dolores, I think the thing that I take most from her is her unyielding optimism that if you keep striving for justice, you will get closer and closer. And so you can't stop. And she's showing us how to do that. So again, thank you all.
Thank you, Bruce. And everyone, please, this is the kind of programming that Farmworker Justice brings to you. In addition to doing the wonderful work that they do for farm workers, the legislation, the lawsuits, the fighting for better wages, the fighting for better conditions. So please, if you can, and if you would do us a favor, go to the Farmworker Justice website and give whatever you can. If it's $1, whatever you can, no amount is too small. And also, please go to doloreshuerta.org, Dolores Huerta's foundation, and see the wonderful work that they do for the community in these times of COVID. And if you give her a birthday gift, send her a little birthday gift. And of course, she won't say no to any amount, I am sure. And with that, I would like to thank everyone, the readers, Dolores Huerta, Luis Valdez, and Bruce Goldstein. Thank you so much for being part of this historic show event that is put on by Farmworker Justice and our sponsors. And we'd like to thank our board of directors and our advisory council. We'd like to thank you for tuning in and hope that you will support. And next time you see that we're doing an event like this, that you will tell 10 of your friends. My name is Belle Hernandez, and it was wonderful to be your host.